When an injury set his NFL career back to the locker room, this up-and-coming star could have given in. But instead, he turned tragedy into opportunity and catapulted his career in a completely different direction.
I think, the biggest thing that I want to share with the audience today is just understand that this game is a long game. This game is about micro speed and macro patience.
Yannik, former Tennessee Titans football player and real estate mogul, found meaning in his struggle and used that drive to send him into the entrepreneurial big leagues. What he discovered in hard times would become a difference maker in the world.
I'm always looking for opportunities to solve problems because a lot of times that's where the money is made. If you don't know how to balance emotion with investing, you're going to lose your money. It's going to take people, it's going to take processes, and it's going to take systems as well.
I'm Mike Kading. Welcome to Zero to Unicorn, where we dive into the lives of the unique visionaries among us that have made $1 billion impact in the world.
Doesn't really matter like what's up against me. What matters is my response to it.
Yannik has done some simply incredible things throughout his career, starting in the NFL and developing into real estate. I'm excited to dive into that at a deeper level, but first, I wanted to understand how someone becomes an NFL player.
Really, it comes down to determination and just grit, right? I think anything that you really want in your life, I think you have the opportunity to accomplish. It really just comes down to sacrifice. And I tell people this all the time. Success comes with sacrifice. Like nothing great is going to be achieved without some sort of sacrifice. And that might be money, time, etc. And that's really what it came down to for me. I remember back in early days in high school where I was the last guy leaving from the gym, or the guy that's on the field doing extra reps just to get better, or the guy that's staying behind after practice to get better, or the guy that's staying behind in the film room just to do that extra, right? Because I truly believe if you really want to be at the top, 1% or just the top of any space, you have to do more than the average, right? You have to be able to commit to doing what's necessary to get to that top space. So, success is simple. We all know the formula. It just comes down to who's willing to sacrifice to get it.
I hear go the extra mile a lot from entrepreneurs, but what does that mean in the world of the NFL?
Especially in the NFL, everybody is great. High school is so much easier because you can be like 6'2", 250. I see people in the South now. It's just crazy how big they are. You can be big in high school and just get by, right? College is a little bit more challenging, but when you get to the pros, I mean, everybody is great, and you're playing with grown men who are like in their middle 30s that have 5 kids and they got to feed their family. And it's just a different level of hunger and a different, the barbaric nature of football just is a different mentality to last long in the NFL. So, to get to that space and be able to compete and play at a high level, it's something that, it's truly something to be proud of. There's talent is only going to get you so far. There's the adage that goes, hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. And there's a lot of, I think people across the board, not just the NFL, but people, I truly believe that each one of us has a gift, right? And it's up to us to unleash that gift, right? It's up to you to unleash that gift within yourself. And I just have this other feeling as well that you can close the gap with hard work. You may not be able to, jump out of the gym, or you may not be able to run like a 4.3 40-yard dash, but there's some aspect within the game that I always believe that through hard work, you can close the gap and still compete. And I think, when it comes to your example of Tom Brady, I think, he figured that out. He figured out that if I can, focus on the details, focus on the little things that can separate myself between other quarterbacks, or focus on the little things that would actually make plays happen. It really just comes down to mentality. I say that all the time. It really just comes down to mentality and how much you really want to work to your goal.
But where does someone find the energy, drive, and the kind of mentality to make it through and get into the NFL?
For me, it was you. I had that internal motivation, and that internal motivation allowed me to push past. I say this other thing too, like your brain is much more stronger than your body, right? Um, because a lot of times when we think that we don't have enough, probably have another 20 to 30% that we can keep going, right? And I got to a point where I was able to master that override of when it got tough, when I for me, I feed off of other people getting tired. When I see other people getting tired, I feed off of that. I feed off of that as like an opportunity to go hunt, to go eat, to go 100 miles per hour, to separate myself from the competition. That's how I was able to be that underdog, right? That guy that nobody believed that walked on from Division 2 would earn a scholarship at Division 1. Nobody believed that got to Division 1 and would become one of the top linebackers in the NFL. Nobody believed that he'd be at the bottom of the depth chart, but still having an opportunity to make the team his rookie year. So it really comes down to, I keep saying mentality, man. That's so crucial. That mentality, having that, we say in sports, that dog mentality, that willingness to just keep fighting no matter what. That's really what separates the greats versus the averages.
Wow, what a great sentiment, and one I've seen mirrored in my own life. As Yannick began to explain, his journey to the NFL wasn't a conventional one. I wanted to know, what was the journey from Division 2 to Division 1 like for him?
I always had the work ethic, and I knew that if given the opportunity and given the coaching, etc., I would be able to flourish. Uh, for I, people, when I decided to give up my scholarship at the Division 2 level and walk on to a Division 1 program, you know, people thought I was crazy. My head coach at the Division 2 level thought I was crazy. But I truly believe, at certain points in your life, you're always going to have to make hard decisions, tough decisions, right? And life is about choices that you make. The choices that you make determine the outcome that you have to deal with in your life. And when I gave up that scholarship, it's just something inside of me that said, you know, I'm just gonna rely on hard work, right? And I know that if given the opportunity, I'll be able to earn a scholarship. And it's somewhat unheard of, but it took me one semester to be on full scholarship. And this is something that, like, I know that a lot of athletes out there that are trying to transition outside of sports to another space that may not know what they're doing, they really just have to latch on to that internal drive and that same energy and that same work ethic, and just apply that into a different space, right? Because no matter who we are in life, we're always one opportunity away, right? If you think about it, we're always one opportunity away from reaching our goals, getting to the next step. And I don't necessarily believe in luck. I think that success happens when opportunity meets preparation. And I've always lied on the ability to be prepared in hopes of that opportunity coming, right? And so that was kind of like my story from transitioning from the Division 2 level to the Division 1 level, is just relying on that underdog mentality, and just telling myself that I'm just going to be prepared and wait till the opportunity comes.
Let me pause here for a moment. This is really insightful. Yannick is in Division 2. He's doing fantastically well. He has an amazing team around him and a scholarship to boot. But Yannick wasn't satisfied by being the big fish in a small pond. He wanted to do more. There's a risk surrounding that. I had to know more about taking that initial step into a bigger world.
Funny story. I remember when my first workout at the Division 1 level. Um, I was a guy that was coming up from the Division 2 level, and I knew that I wanted to turn heads. Right, that's one thing that I always knew, that if you got an opportunity to, when somebody's watching, you got to make sure that they're focusing on you. Same thing when you're on the field. Coaches are watching film. They always look for players that stick out, like who's standing out, who's running to the ball, who's doing doing what they're supposed to do at any given time. So it's just funny story, to that point. There was this, one of the linebackers, and we had this tug of war drill, and I knew that the guy was stronger than me, right? He was super built, everything, but I called him out basically, to to do a one-on-one tug of war kind of post workout, macho on macho type of drill. It's somewhat similar. It's somewhat similar to that Oklahoma drill. I'm not sure if you know about that in football, where people get up off their back and just run into each other, and the coaches just get crazy, right? But I say that to say, you know, there was no fear in me of losing, right? I wanted to make sure that I was setting the tone for myself of, this is the competition that you have to get used to, right? And I think once you put yourself in circles that are challenging, you put yourself in spaces that are tough to come by, I think that only hardens you as a person to move forward. And so, yeah, I totally believe that, once you surround yourself with people who are better than you, or you surround yourself with people who are competitive and have that spirit, there's no reason why you can't be next.
I think Yannik said something really powerful here, which is that you put yourself almost in tough situations because in being in that tough situation, it's uncomfortable, it's painful, it's stressful, but you become so much stronger of a person by having got through that tribulation. With that attitude shift, Yannik must have known the NFL was going to call.
I went undrafted. It was always a goal of mine to be drafted. I did have the opportunity to get drafted, but the way that the NFL works is that, the first 1 to 3 rounds are good rounds to get drafted in. But when you start slipping into like 4th to 7th round, you really want to be super specific about the team that you want to go to, because you want to make sure that you have the best ability to compete, right? And so when I got, got the call in the 5th, we got the call in the 5th. They were thinking about drafting at that time. They didn't. Then I got a call in the 7th round from the Detroit Lions that said, "Hey, we know you play outside linebacker. We know you like to sack the quarterback, but we think you would be a great inside linebacker. Would you be open to that?" And I told them no. I told them I was not open to that, because I knew that, again, I keep saying opportunities. I knew that if I went undrafted, I'd have more of an opportunity to select where I want to go to after looking at that roster. So I didn't get the call, unfortunately, but I'm a big person on just opportunity. My underdog story, my underdog mentality is, I don't care where I'm at, who I'm up against, line me up and let's go at it, right? And that was just kind of the mentality that I had. So when I got into the NFL and officially signed with the Tennessee Titans, I knew that it was game on from there.
So Yannik is at a point where he could have signed. He could have been drafted, and he said no. Like so many other entrepreneurs, Yannik had a deciding moment, but unlike others, Yannick's decision would either take him to the NFL or not.
It was tough because, I always wanted to be drafted, right? I could have went in a higher round. Unfortunately, I had some injuries that were, part of the questioning. Was my health. Being able to stay healthy. So, obviously that was certainly tough, but I'm just big on opportunities. I want to put myself in the best situation possible, and I knew just from talking to my agent that, the later rounds are, although yes, you do get a larger signing bonus, at some points, depending on how competitive the free agency market is, you're better off just sacrificing an extra 10 to 20 grand to be in a situation where you're competing with maybe less people, or people who that you can beat out, and making much more money by actually being on the team. So that was the strategy there, and I just went with it, and it paid off. The agents typically have those connections. I was represented by a full-time agency, and they typically have the connections with the front office, and they're talking pre-draft, post-draft, building hype, etc. So it was just, I think I probably had like 17 offers from different teams, and I felt that the Titans was the best opportunity for me to compete. I know guys that never made it to the NFL that should have gotten a lot of offers. Fortunately, I guess I had something that was something that I guess I was good enough to get a lot of those offers. But it felt great. But I, I was just more focused again on just the opportunity, right?
Mm.
I just wanted to make sure that wherever I'm going, I'm in the best opportunity to win a spot on the team. And again, fortunately, it came through. So it's just a long season. They call it the rookie wall for a reason. You after college football ends, maybe December, maybe January, depending on how late your bowl game is. Then you just go straight into pre-draft, workouts. Then there's the combine. I went to the combine. Then there's the pro day. Then you're still working out to kind of be in shape, and then you get drafted, and then like a week later they fly you out to the city of the team. They put you in a hotel, then you're in rookie mini camp and OTAs, and you get a month off, but you're still working out, and then you have to go back to camp, and then you have the whole season. So they call it the rookie wall because it's just almost pretty much a full year of activity in football. To make the team is very, very challenging because I'm not sure what the new CBA rules are now, but I think back then it was a 53-man roster.
Mm.
You would start out with like 100 people, and every week, you know, people would just get cut, and the mental toughness that you have to have in the NFL is just it's totally different. Because picture, for example, if you, let's say, if you were an architect, or maybe if you were an engineer, or you worked in IT, and every week you're seeing people released, cut, fired. You really have to have like that mental fortitude and toughness to just push past that and keep going. It's a different ball game when you're kind of experiencing that. And that's the human side that a lot of people don't know about in the NFL. I think a lot of outsiders looking in may look at the NFL and say, "Oh, well, these guys are making 7, 8, make some cases 9 figures these days," right? And I think there's still a human element to some portion of it from a mental health perspective when you talk about your job is on the line, literally, especially if you're a rookie every single day. So for me, it was just pushing forward, competing, beating out people on the team, and quite frankly just making the team.
I think that if the average person saw their coworkers get laid off, even just a couple of them, they would be in a very tough emotional state because of that. But in the NFL, it's every single day that people are getting let go.
So how it goes in the NFL is they give you iPads, and we had this thing called the Reaper. Basically, when someone from the front office comes down to your locker and says, "Hey, bring your iPad, come with me," that means they're getting cut. And I've seen a lot of those,
Mm.
while I was in the NFL, and that's probably one of the worst feelings that you could have, is the Reaper to come by and tell you bring your iPad and come upstairs to the front office.
But what was it like walking onto the field for the very first time at a real NFL game?
It was fantastic. It was fantastic. I remember my first preseason game, lining up against like Matt Ryan, looking to my left, and it was Julio Jones, and I was just like, man, last week I was literally just in college, right? That was just a wonderful experience, and it was super gratifying to feel like, out of all the obstacles that was placed in front of me, all of the hurdles, all of the press that was saying, well, he's not good enough, he is, not the best that can make it to the pros, to overcome that, man. That's probably one of the best feelings. So, I was super, super, ecstatic to make it to the NFL. And again, it's one of my biggest cherished moments.
Given the pressures of being an NFL player, I wanted to know, how does Yannik deal with this on a personal level?
That's a good question. you just kind of just really just have to develop like that hardened mentality, right?
Mm,
Um, it's I think it's like the saying about something where like an egg is gets like hardened in hot water but gets colder and or softer in a different temperature and environment. It's kind of like that, right? It's really just have to have that mentality to harden you, to to just understand like people are always gonna have some sort of opinion. That's how I think about things. There's always going to be some sort of opinion, and whether they're right or wrong, really, it's what really matters is just the 6 to 12 inches really that are in your ear to ear, right? That's really all that really matters, because a lot of times we're our own biggest enemies and biggest critics, right? When you look in the mirror, you know what you've done today, and you know that you were supposed to do what you were supposed to do, and you didn't do what you were supposed to do, right? And so I kind of just latch on to that mentality of, if I just laser in on all of my goals, laser in on what I'm supposed to do, people are always going to have an opinion. But I learned a long time ago that opinions don't cash checks at the bank, right? And so that's something that I've always been focusing on, is just my mentality and just being locked in and laser focused on what I'm trying to accomplish. And really, that's all that matters, right? As long as you're happy and you accomplish your goals, nothing else really matters in life.
but there must be some reward in all of this.
My favorite moment. So I guess I don't necessarily have a super favorite moment. I think what came out of the NFL was one of my biggest moments or accomplishments, right? So for me, I came to this country when I was about 10 years old, and we came with a bag of clothes, and we didn't really have much, right? And we made it happen. And I say me, I'm talking about my mother and I, and being able to have enough money to buy her first home. That was something that was my one of my biggest goals in life, was to make sure that she had a place that she can call her own. And it's something that just kind of developed off of our immigration from a third world country, quite frankly, to the US, right? And sleeping on the floor. And now, hey, I'm in the NFL and I'm able to buy my mom her first house. I think that's probably the biggest memory that I have of like the NFL for me. Like that's my favorite accomplishment.
Sadly, Yannick's time in football was to be short lived as he sustained a career ending injury. I wondered, how does this affect Yannick and his career goals moving forward?
Yeah, so I tore my patella tendon towards the back end of my rookie year. And unfortunately, I had several surgeries, and just never was able to rebound and get back to the strength that I had in my knee. So that was probably one of the toughest moments in my life, just dealing with that, the mental side of that, just having that window just shut so fast, what it seemed like, and just so short of a window, was just unreal to me. But again, fortunately, I started picking up books like Rich Dad Poor Dad. I met a real estate developer in Nashville. uh, I'm always a person that has always tried to do something. Like, I've never there's not in any way that you're going to see me down, in the corner, just like licking my wounds. Like, I'm going to be hurt, but I'm going to be hurt and still like doing something, right? So I tried like drop shipping, for example. I tried to start a drop shipping company while I was trying to transition out of the world of the NFL. I was just trying different things, and I just felt that this real estate stuff was something that was super applicable to what my sports background. So I've always been in a position of being a captain. I know how to lead people. I know how to build teams. I know how to deal with people's emotions. I know how to handle stress. I know how to fight against adversity. I know emotional intelligence. I know how to put people in the right positions. All of the things, when you're an operator, that's some of the soft skills that really separate you know people in general, or just operators in general, right? Or just
Mm.
leaders, quite frankly. That's something that I just, hung my hat on, and I said, hey, if I just take the same energy and work ethic and just apply that into real estate, and I may not know anything about real estate. I graduated from the University of Maryland with a kinesiology degree. So that was, that had nothing to do with investment finance. But I said, hey, if I if I if I got someone to believe in my work ethic and allow me into their organization and just latch on to them and learn, that I think that's a great way to get into a space transition and just learn a totally different field, because it's no different from being in the film room, for example,
Mm.
right? Studying film, me sitting on a desk with someone who owns $2 billion worth of real estate. There's no different from him being my coach, right? So that's just the mindset and the mentality that I had was, you know, yeah, it sucks right now, but this real estate thing, it seems like it could be something that I can make a fruitful business out of.
The one thing I just love about Yannick is that he has such a positive mindset. We're talking about these tough moments, these life changing moments, and yet Yannick still retains a positive perspective. I think that really speaks loudly about the kind of person he is. But it was important for me to know, how did he feel in that life changing moment?
So I've always been like that. I keep saying, that underdog, that just mentality. I've always had that chip on my shoulder. I've always, I've came to terms with in my life that, um, I'm just gonna have to be that dog in that fight, right? And it doesn't really matter what situation that I'm placed in. Doesn't really matter like what's up against me. What matters is my response to it, right? And I think that's just a microcosm of just life. Like, things are going to happen. Pie is going to be in your face, but what we can control is how we respond to that. And I think once we understand that, then you have true control over your life, true control over your mental, true control over your outcomes, because that's ultimately what it comes down to, right? It's just, um, taking control of your life and not having the world just control it as it sees fit.
Let me take a moment here. What Yannick is saying about his life and overcoming life changing circumstances, well, that's one of the most important lessons I've ever learned in my own life. How we have the power to make a choice in how we respond despite the circumstances around us and choosing a more positive route. That's simply amazing. As Yannick's story continues, he then enters the world of real estate, starting to change the game in his own way. I wanted to know how his story began.
Yeah. So as I mentioned, I met a developer in Nashville. He introduced me to real estate. I also was just always curious about real estate. I stumbled upon this Rich Dad Poor Dad book, like everyone else in real estate. And the biggest thing for that from that book was, it's not about how much you make, it's about how much you keep. An ideal time for me, at the same time when I spent the $20,000, in 1 month in the off season on just personal expenses. And I've always been a frugal person, but that with the injury really, forced me to just pull back a little bit and say, well, hey, I'm not this, I may not be this big shot NFL guy anymore. Let me just kind of pull back and make sure that, let me maybe get to the second contract or just get back on the field before I start doing, making some crazy purchases here. So it was just kind of fortunate for me to kind of latch on to that. And, how I got my start in real estate was, again, just hustling. I wanted to learn before I earned. That's one of the biggest pitfalls I think new investors get into, specifically when they want to get into the world of commercial real estate, is that they think that they should just be doing deals for the money. But I think that your education is always going to outlast the opportunity. So you
Mm.
might get lucky on the first deal, but the education is always going to catch up to you at some point, or the experience is always going to catch up to you at some point. So I said, hey, I understand that this, real estate is going to be a long play for me. I don't know anything about it. I'm just going to be a sponge. So I started off in brokerage, specifically focusing on multifamily investment sales. Around that time, I got introduced to multifamily and the benefits, and said, "Hey, this is a much scalable way to build a portfolio than residential single family real estate." So I wanted to learn more on the multifamily side of things. Got in brokerage, did that for about a year. Really told myself, "Hey, I want to be an investor." Right. The brokerage stuff was just a stepping stone for me to just say, "Hey, I'm in real estate." Now I'm networking and opening doors for myself to be on the investment side. So fortunately, I met with a private equity developer in DC. He gave me an opportunity to join his firm as an asset manager, learn from him. Did that for a couple of years. Then I moved to Walker and Dunlop as an asset manager. Did that for a little while. Then I moved on to an institutional firm as an asset manager. Did that for a little over a year, and then after that, after those 5 years, I just decided to go, full time. So around that was about 4 years, right? So after those 4 years, I decided to go full time in real estate and just pursue, building our own assets. So we've been pretty successful since.
But after you make the leap to work on your own, how do you even start? Where do you raise the capital and how do you think about all of that?
Yeah, that's a good question. That's a good question because I'm not sure what other people are doing. I'm just being transparent here, but I really work hard on what I do. And I see people on social media saying, "Oh, capital raising is easy and doing larger deals is easy." And that might be easy for some people and maybe more challenging for others. Um, but I think it's just to do bigger deals requires more, right? If you want to do a regular single family $100,000 house, like that's somewhat easier than doing $10 million deal, right? Because there's a capital side to it, where you're going to get the money from. There's the operational expertise side of that. There's the acquisition side of that. Who's going to help you with that? And there are other things, maybe from a construction standpoint, because it is a larger project that you have to kind of figure out. And for me, luckily, I got the experience from learning from someone else.
Hmm.
So while I was doing that, I was still building my network, raising capital, call it on the side, figuring out the operations aspect, while I was working for that firm, the acquisitions aspect to that as well, the construction aspect. I've been able, at that time I was uh, construct doing construction management, not on the ground, but as an asset manager of over like 50 to $100 million projects. So just chipping away at that education really helped me get my start in the real estate space.
So I want to go back to a moment. Yannick has found himself working for a larger firm. He has a steady paycheck coming in, and yet again, Yannick asks himself, is this the life I want to lead? And once again, he makes the choice to take the leap and go out on his own. What's going through his mind in that moment?
Yeah, I think I've always wanted. So when I transitioned from the NFL to real estate, I always said that I wanted the same amount of, I wanted the same or similar lifestyle that I had in the NFL, um, in the real estate, right? And how I thought that or how we have achieved that was just from cash flow, right? From acquiring properties, building that rental portfolio, and supplementing that income in a way that would allow you to control your time. Because the reality is that when you work for someone else, although I'm not, I'm not the one to preach, everyone should quit their job and become an entrepreneur, because quite frankly, entrepreneurship is not for everyone. There's sacrifices that comes with that. There's challenges, obstacles, headaches, stress, all of the things that comes with entrepreneurship, and everyone is not cut out for that. But for me, I knew that I wanted to control my time. I wanted to create generational wealth, and I wanted to make an impact. So I found that entrepreneurship was a great way for me to do that. And I said, you know, I've I've learned enough to be dangerous. Now is a great opportunity for me to just jump out there full time. And so um, I think for people who are conflicted about making that jump, first think about, is this the life that you want to to leave, to live, breathe, sleep, enjoy, and really just intertwine within your life, right? Because entrepreneurship is completely different than just clocking in and clocking out
Mm.
and watching Netflix, right? That's just the truth that people don't really like to talk about. Um, so it's just about, first dedicating yourself to that lifestyle, but then committing yourself. Because I think dedication and commitments are two different things. If you're dedicated, yes, you're going to change things in a way that would pivot you in a route to get to your goal. But commitment, that's like an internal just DNA change of like, I'm no longer waking up at 8 o'clock anymore. Like if I wake up at 5 a.m., it's a fail. I should be waking up at 4 a.m. Like that's the level of commitment that I think you have to do to be a really, really successful entrepreneur. So, for people who are trying to make that change and just make that decision, really, really think about that. I think it's human nature to have that little voice in your mind say, hey, well, what if it doesn't work out? What if this? What if that? But I think it's just up to you to really silence that little voice and really just focus on the positives and focus on how you're going to get to that level, right? I'm not saying jump out there if you have $0 in savings, but I think that if you truly want something, you're going to figure it out.
Now that Yannick is running his own real estate business, I wanted to know what are some of the biggest challenges he's faced in this new arena?
I would say that the biggest challenge that I've faced was, by nature of my personality, I have no problem with playing at the high level, which is, being the leader, structuring the deal, the lead, general partner in the deal, being that guy, raising the capital, closing the deal. But I have no problem jumping in the field if need to, and I need to pick a shovel up and get something done, right? And I think that's the difference. I think for someone who, I think that's a true leader in my perspective, right? First and foremost, because you should always lead by example. There's for people that work for you, and we been fortunate to make our first hire this year. For people to work for you, one, they have to, I think they should respect you, but I think it's incumbent on you to show them that you're willing to do the same thing that they're doing right now, right? Um, so for me, I think that one of the biggest challenges was just, yeah, I have that mentality, but letting that go from a perspective of I can't scale
Mm.
if I'm focused on the smaller items. Even though, yes, I can jump into that and take that on, that is not something that I should be doing. And I think that's a constant battle between where I want to be, or where we're working to be, versus what I may want to do at that moment in time. Because I have no problem with saying, well, either you're on the train or you're on the tracks, right? I'm completely fine with both. Like if I need to get something done, I'm going to get it done myself. So I think that's that for me. 2023 was all about stepping back, you know, separating what got me to where I am, which is the hustling mentality, to becoming a CEO and a visionary type of
Mm.
mentality.
Here, I really had to know, was there a moment, a story, a time that really solidified Yannick's need to make a change?
Um, it was probably when I was, after I closed my second deal, second, multifamily deal, and I think like the day after that, I was like at Home Depot, and I was just like, you know, here we are, we just like closed, you know, a 1 point or like a $2 million deal, and I'm at Home Depot. Like I should be working on my next deal, right? So I think that was kind of like that moment of understanding that, in order for me to scale and grow the firm, I can't do this anymore. First year real estate, guy that was hungry to learn everything and willing to do whatever it takes to get to that goal. I have to leave that person behind, because that person is essentially going to be my biggest hurdle when it comes to getting to ultimately my truest potential, which is at the top, right? So that was probably my last straw moment.
Hmm. It's worth noting here that for all the top businesses, the ones that have truly made an impact in the world, they've all gone through some major moments that really set them back. Apple nearly went bankrupt, and Nike had a similar moment. In fact, the founder thought that he may even go to jail. I posed to Yannick the question, had he ever experienced a moment like that?
So fortunately, I haven't had a large hiccup or a large challenge. I would say that I have had many challenges that definitely tested the journey or tested the faith, whether it's a deal that was the capital commits were slow to come in, for example. That can be one of the most stressful points. Maybe a contractor that I got ripped off from in my early days, or maybe a deal that didn't go so well. I think those moments could definitely tie you up and really make you rethink, like, is this something that I really want to do? But it really just comes down to your why, right? Why are you doing this? Anytime that I feel that I'm getting some sort of doubt, I immediately just kind of put things down and just go do something else, right? Or just hang it up for the night, go sleep, and I'll wake up tomorrow and see how I feel. And I always try to go back to that why about what I'm doing, why I'm doing it. And a lot of times that why would really bring out the best out of you, because if that why is strong enough, many of times it will allow you to kind of push past whatever that you're going through. If it's not strong enough, then obviously you're going to pivot and do something else, right? So um, that's kind of how I overcome hurdles and struggles. And you know to your question, that's part of some of the things that I've been able to overcome.
I'm going to take another moment here because this resonates with me deeply. I cannot stress enough the importance of knowing your why. Every entrepreneur that I speak to has a purpose bigger than themselves. The why is understanding what that purpose means to you as an individual. Because without that purpose, without knowing your why, you will never be fully in control of your vision, your destiny. That's what drives true visionaries to make a meaningful impact in the world. What I wanted to find out next was, given the fraternity of brothers Yannick made during his playing career, did they reach out and offer any help getting him started? And were there any unexpected challenges?
Definitely. One of my first deals, we were able to successfully raise some capital, from folks that I've played with in the NFL. I would say one of the biggest challenges when it comes to uh, athletes, I think in general, specifically, I would say in the NFL, is that you know the velocity of money is something that they're used to, and it's not the same of an average person's life. So I'll break it down in this context. So a lot of times, athletes, when they're making money in the pros, those checks come in like 50, 100, 200, 100, maybe 500 grand if you're one of the top athletes on the team. And in the NFL, you get that over maybe a 19 or a 20 week period, right? So your entire millions of dollars into those little chunks. And I think psychologically that affects the athlete in a way, negatively, in a way that tells them, well, this is how money is made, right? Because they've never seen anything else. So I think historically that has a lot to do with the connection between athletes losing money on investments that promised high returns, but really they had no ability to evaluate risk, because one, they're not educated, and then two, they think that this is just how money is made, right? So I think today's athletes are much more different in a way that they're more educated. They're exposed to opportunities like venture capital, real estate, trucking, whatever the case may be, different aspects of business. So the modern day athlete, in my opinion, is much more smarter now than the 2000s broke 30 for 30 series, right? But I say that to say that a lot of times, some athletes still think that um, high returns you know, it's deals that have high returns are deals that they should be investing in, right? Because it matches up with their profile of, an exorbitant amount of money, right? Whereas, if they understand that, a steady 8% return that compounds just year over year, that can do a lot for you as well. And that's, you know, depending on what space you're playing in, a safer investment than something that's saying, 50% in 2 months, right? So I'd say that to say that's probably one of the hurdles that I originally ran into when I was getting into the world of private investments and educating athletes on opportunities that we have. And now today we just kind of serve as the sounding board on investment opportunities, specifically in the world of real estate, and just educate them on how to evaluate risk, where they should be allocating their capital, in hopes of them being able to preserve the wealth that they've created in such a short time, because it's really a short time for an athlete, right? It's to make $100 million in maybe 8 to 10 years. That's a very, like, some people, that's generational money in a very short time. So when I'm having conversations with athletes who I know have amassed, this amount of capital in a short time, I try to relay that message in a way that's receptive, and they understand it from that perspective. I think the ones who they're going to be ones that get it, and they're going to be ones who have a little bit more higher risk profile. And I think that's
Mm.
just the nature of an athlete. Is we have this bet on ourselves mentality, but I think if you don't know how to balance emotion with investing, you're going to lose your money, because emotions and money never mix well, right? Especially when it comes to investing. And I've heard different stories from folks who I know who have transitioned and gotten into investments because they see the high return, or they didn't know how to evaluate risk, or they had this, you know we're going to hit it big this time because this is what I'm used to, and this is what I need to do, right? So I think there's going to be some changes in the future.
One of the interesting things going on in the real estate market today is rising interest rates. This has caused a lot of deals simply not to make sense. As such, there's a lot of turmoil right now in the space. I asked Yannik for his perspective on this.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I think that everyone across the board in the real estate industry has certainly, felt the pressure. I mean, the reality is, if you started your real estate career in the past 10 years, you've seen nothing but up markets, right? You've seen low interest rates, and that's what you're used to. And you know, you can fathom seeing a 6% or let alone 7% interest rate. So I think there's a lot of head spins and a lot of people just maybe on the sidelines waiting for the Fed to change their tune. For us, we see it as an opportunity to still acquire deals at a great basis, right? Because we knew that, um, with a lot of attention and a lot of just excitement around this whole world of syndications, I knew that there was going to be a bubble on syndications,
Mm,
from the perspective of people getting into deals at too high of prices, people not being educated on how to effectively operate and manage opportunities, which is really where the money is made. Things like that would get a lot of people in trouble. So I say that to say, for us, we are still looking at opportunities, specifically at uh, you know deals that we can buy at the right price. That's what we're focused on, and we know that you know interest rates are always going to affect commercial real estate investments, right? It's not it's always going to have an effect on the yields that you're able to get, depending on the price that's out there. But for us, it's really just about buying deals at the right price, and understanding that as long as we stick to our fundamentals and our prices at the right basis, we'll be fine,
mm,
right? Because that where we play in the multifamily space, affordable housing, it's a crisis across the
yeah.
country. And so we know if we buy in the right places, we'll be able to attract the right tenants, and the fundamentals will just help us elevate our investment. So I say that to say, as long as we buy the right price, we'll be fine. We're still looking at opportunities.
As we reach the end of this chapter in Yannick's story, I asked Yannick, what's his dream? Where does he see this going? And what advice does he have for up and coming entrepreneurs?
Yeah, so our goal, our ultimate company goal, um, is to acquire $5 billion of real estate, 10,000 units of real estate, whether that's through acquisitions or development. And I mentioned that we're pivoting into the world of affordable housing development, specifically through tax credits and those allocations. I think it's a phenomenal opportunity for investors to get into the world of affordable housing because I mean I read an article a couple of days ago. They were saying it's like at the worst levels in history from an affordability perspective. So I'm always looking for opportunities to solve problems because a lot of times that's where the money is made, right? By solving problems. So I figured that with a little bit of hard work and just being in the right place, we'll be able to be quote unquote lucky again. The journey that I'm on, I don't know what's in the future, but I know it requires patience, right? So I heard someone say the other day, this game is about micro speed and macro patience.
Mm.
Micro speed in a way that allows you to take action from a day-to-day basis, control what you can control, make sure that you are focusing on the right things that you need to focus on, and then macro patience to understand that it's not going to be built overnight. But I think if you keep chipping away at it, you keep taking action on a day-to-day perspective, and you just keep making those daily deposits, over time you're going to achieve what you want to achieve. So that's what I hang my hat on, is just focusing on the small things, the details, the steps. And I think once we look up 5 to 10 years from now, there should be no reason why I shouldn't be achieving that goal. So I think the biggest thing that I want to share with the audience today is just understand that this game is a long game. It's if you want to play, I think at the private equity level, the commercial real estate level, I think you just have to understand that this is a long game. It requires patience. It requires gratitude. It requires a long-term outlook, and you cannot go on this journey by yourself. You have to understand that it's going to take people, it's going to take processes, and it's going to take systems as well. And I think if you kind of hang your hat on that, you'll definitely be able to be successful.
Yannik is a visionary. His work ethic, his newfound desire, and the lessons the NFL imparted upon him sent him in directions he could not have foreseen. But with his tenacity, passion, and singular drive, Yannik didn't let adversity derail him. Instead, he used life lessons to make a meaningful impact in the world. And isn't that what we want from all of our leaders? Thank you for listening. Keep following the journey by subscribing. And if you want to tell a friend, we'd be cool with that too.